D.B. Cooper.
D.B. Cooper.
D.B.
D.B. Cooper.
D.B. Cooper.
The hijacker, carrying a briefcase which held explosives.
What if the enigma surrounding D.B. Cooper, one of history's most notorious unsolved crimes, has finally been solved? But what if the truth isn't what we expected? Could the man behind the infamous hijacking be someone we least expect? The D.B. Cooper mystery has been solved, and it's not good. Stay tuned as we reveal frightening new revelations.
Of D.B. Cooper. Now, he is the infamous airplane hijacker who jumped out of a plane back in 1971.
The D.B. Cooper mystery may have been solved by locating a parachute belonging to Richard McCoy, a convicted skyjacker whose crime was similar to Cooper's. According to experts, this fresh information could link McCoy to the hijacking of Flight 91. If the parachute matches the original equipment used in Cooper's escape, it would prove McCoy's involvement, casting new light on a decades-long mystery that has gripped the public for years. However, the revelation may not be as simple or as heroic as many people formerly believed. A mystery story began more than 50 years ago and continues to captivate audiences today.
This is D.B. Cooper's ticket in the name of Dan Cooper.
He needed a way to secure the money on his bag.
On November 24, 1971, an unknown guy took control of a Boeing 727 aircraft flying from Seattle, Washington to Portland, Oregon. This man, whose real name was unknown, became known as D.B. Cooper. When the plane was in the air, he calmly informed the flight attendant that he had a bomb. He even showed her something inside a bag that resembled sticks of dynamite to demonstrate his seriousness. As the jet continued on its voyage, man-made needs became increasingly explicit. He stated that when the jet landed in Seattle, he requested $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. The authorities followed his directions. Once the jet landed in Seattle, all of the passengers were safely released. Cooper remained on board, however, and gave the crew new instructions. He instructed them to fly south to Mexico City, with a brief stop in Reno, Nevada, for refueling. Then something unexpected occurred. Just 30 minutes after departure, as the plane sailed through the dark night skies over Washington state, the hijacker opened the plane's rear stairs. He leaped out with a parachute and vanished into the cold, overcast night. The ransom money, 10,000 $20 bills, traveled with him. From that point on, the story of D.B. Cooper became one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. The hijacker's exact identity has never been revealed. Prior to his disappearance, he went by the name Dan Cooper, but owing to an error in early press stories in the United States, he became known as D.B. Cooper instead. The error was never fixed, and the name D.B. Cooper rose to national and international fame. Cooper's strong and brave acts heightened the attention in this case. People were both surprised and captivated by what he did, which had an air of adventure to it. It wasn't a typical crime. This was the first occasion someone hijacked a plane and then jumped out using a parachute. Nobody had seen anything like that before. Back then, the $200,000 he requested was considered a large sum. That amount may not seem like much in today's context, but in 1971, it was the greatest ransom ever demanded by a hijacker in the United States. The combination of intrigue, peril, and a clean escape transformed the story of D.B. Cooper became a legend that people continue to talk about today. But now, after all these years, an unexpected hint has surfaced, one that may ultimately reveal who D.B. Cooper truly was. Yes, the D.B. Cooper mystery has finally been solved, and it isn't good. The enigma surrounding D.B. Cooper's investigation took an unexpected turn when the children of a guy named Richard McCoy II came forward with a strong suspicion that their father was the notorious skyjacker. D.B. Cooper is the only hijacker in American history to have vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that has persisted for more than 5 decades. But now, maybe the enigma is finally beginning to unravel. Not long after DB's amazing escape, in 1971, Richard McCoy was caught and later convicted of a very identical act. His case followed a similar bizarre pattern. He seized a plane, demanded ransom money, and escaped by leaping out with a parachute. The similarities were too close to be ignored. His children, Shantae and Richard III, sometimes known as Rick, have long suspected that their father was more than a copycat. He could have been Cooper himself. For a long period, their thoughts were guided by hints and family recollections. However, they now believe they have more substantial evidence to back up their accusations. This potential new proof might alter everything. With this new lead and increased interest in the FBI's hidden parachute, more eyes are turning to McCoy's background. The centerpiece of their argument is a customized parachute. Not just any parachute, but one that sticks out significantly. Dan Grider, an aviation enthusiast and YouTube investigator, has spent years researching the D.B. Cooper mystery, has joined forces with the siblings. During an interview with Cowboy State Daily, he referred to the parachute as one in a billion because of its unique construction and modifications. Grider's YouTube series, which delves deeply into this notion, was essential in regaining the FBI's attention. Because of this fresh interest, the FBI has taken ownership of the parachute and other things discovered hidden away in a shed on the McCoy family's home in North Carolina. Along with the parachute, they found a harness and a skydiving logbook. According to Shantae, the logbook records moves that correspond to the times and places of both skyjacking incidents, near Oregon and Utah. This is the FBI's first big step on this case since it was officially closed in 2016. However, rumors have long circulated that some within the agency continue to secretly pursue leads. With new clues in hand, the decades-old mystery may be closer than ever to being solved. After obtaining the fresh materials from the McCoys, the FBI wasted no time. According to Dan Grider, agents searched the location where the parachute was housed for around 4 hours. More than a dozen agents engaged in the hunt, demonstrating how serious they were about this new lead. The finding of the parachute with peculiar qualities may finally provide some closure to a case that has been unsolved for more than 50 years. What makes this parachute so significant is how it was modified. Earl Cossey, a talented and experienced skydiver, packed and adjusted the parachutes handed to the skyjacker during the original hijacking in '71. Cossey had been assisting the FBI at the time, using his extensive knowledge to prepare the chutes. He eventually became a silent presence in the case's background, until he was slain in his own house in 2013, adding a tragic twist to an already unusual mystery. If the alterations to this recently discovered parachute fit the style or pattern of Cossey's original work, it might be a significant breakthrough. It would link the equipment directly to the hijacking, supporting the theory that Richard McCoy and D.B. Cooper was one and the same. This type of match could provide the FBI with the necessary evidence to reopen the case in its entirety and finally put an end to America's most famous unsolved skyjacking. Over the years, D.B. the Cooper case has become more than a criminal probe. It has become a modern legend. People of all ages have been fascinated by the enigma, and various hypotheses have emerged. From online forums and YouTube videos to books and documentaries, everyone seems to have a different take on who Cooper was and how he managed such a daring escape. The case has evolved into one in which fact and fantasy frequently overlap. Back in the 1990s, one book even named Richard McCoy as the mastermind behind the hijacking. The book was titled D.B. Cooper, The Real McCoy. Brazenly stated that McCoy did not simply replicate the crime, but was the original hijacker all along. The book garnered popularity, but the assertions rapidly sparked controversy. Karen, McCoy's wife, took legal action and sued for libel, claiming that the article was inaccurate and hurtful. As a result, the book was withdrawn from publication and its allegations were largely dismissed. Even after the book was pulled from the stores, the belief that McCoy was Cooper persisted. The theory persisted in conversations and research, hovering in the background. And now, with new evidence and renewed interest in the case, that old hypothesis is regaining traction, this time with more weight than ever. On November 24, 1971, a man named Dan Cooper, though the media incorrectly reported it as DB, boarded Northwest Orient Flight 345 in Seattle. He paid only $18.52 in cash for a one-way ticket to Portland, Oregon, and did not provide any identification. This was possible because there were less laws in place at the time regarding passenger identification. Halfway through the flight, Cooper gently gave a message to a flight attendant sitting behind him. He told her that she needed to read it straight away because he had a bomb. When she opened the note, his motives were evident. To demonstrate his seriousness, Cooper opened his briefcase and showed her what appeared to be a bomb within. He wasn't bluffing. He had meticulously planned this. Cooper made his requests after gaining her attention. He wanted $200,000 in cash, multiple parachutes, and a refueling truck waiting for him in Seattle. His aim was to make a hasty getaway, flying off after the jet landed and heading for Mexico City. At that point, it was evident that Cooper was not simply wanting money. He had a daring escape scheme in mind, one that no one had ever seen before. When Cooper's requests were completely granted, the situation got even more uncomfortable and peculiar. What was intended to be a quick 30-minute flight became a nearly 2-hour journey as the jet circled over Puget Sound. Ground staff were quickly preparing for Cooper's next move, including securing the money, parachutes, and refueling vehicle. While the jet was trapped in its holding pattern, the passengers had no idea what was going on. Cooper eventually allowed 35 passengers to disembark, along with a few crew members, leaving only 4 crew members to obey his orders. Cooper took over flight operations when the cabin was cleared. He wasn't just seeking a ransom and seizing control of the entire thing. He gave specific instructions to the remaining crew, including the plane's speed, flap angle settings, and even the aircraft's design. Cooper was well aware of what he was doing. He had meticulously planned each stage of his escape. Cooper and the 4 remaining crew members took off again, this time into the night, once all of the talks were done and the aircraft was equipped to his specifications. However, what happened next remains a mystery. Cooper made his move somewhere across Washington State's dark, chilly expanse. He opened the plane's rear staircase, a rarely used feature, and leapt into the night sky with a parachute strapped on his back. The precise timing and location of his jump have never been determined. Immediately after the plane landed in Reno, authorities launched a huge hunt for Cooper, but despite their best efforts, they discovered nothing. There is no parachute, no body, and no indication of Cooper himself. The search was hindered by numerous unknowns: the darkness of the night, variable wind conditions, and the plane's speed made it practically difficult to narrow down where he could have landed. Over the years, several experts and investigators have attempted to determine the location where Cooper may have jumped, but the elements involved that night, including the weather, the plane's speed, and the distant terrain, made it difficult to focus their search efforts. It's as if Cooper vanished, leaving just questions. The case became even more legendary as time passed, with fresh hypotheses and speculations emerging, but no convincing proof was ever discovered to explain what happened after Cooper took that heroic leap into the unknown. DB left behind a few concrete pieces of proof. Cooper was an odd item, a $1.49 clip-on tie from J.C. Penney. The FBI is still holding on to this tie, which was discovered on the plane after Cooper's heroic escape. While it may appear to be a minor clue, it is one of the few physical artifacts linked to Cooper that detectives have examined. Over the years, amateur sleuths and armchair detectives have launched numerous lawsuits against the government, attempting to obtain access to the DNA and any minute particles found on the tie. However, their efforts have been futile, and the tie remains hidden away, its secrets unknown. If Cooper's parachute from his escape could be located, it would significantly expand the evidence in the case. The parachute could reveal important details about his name and skydiving knowledge, as well as trace evidence linking him to a specific individual. However, the parachute remains elusive, and the chances of locating it diminish with each passing year. Among the various suspects considered throughout the years, Richard McCoy is one of the most fascinating. McCoy's skyjacking, which occurred just months after Cooper's, followed a remarkably identical pattern. He stole a plane, demanded ransom, and then parachuted out. However, McCoy was soon dismissed as a suspect for one important reason. Many FBI agents believed that the real D.B. Cooper perished during the jump. The jump was dangerous, and the conditions were terrible, so several investigators assumed Cooper did not survive the plunge. Furthermore, McCoy did not quite fit Cooper's physical description. At the period of D.B., Cooper was believed to be in his mid-40s at the time of his hijacking, although McCoy was only 27 years old. This age difference was enough to have many people dismiss McCoy as a viable suspect. Despite the similarities between the two incidents, McCoy's physical appearance and the possibility that Cooper perished during the jump prompted detectives to explore elsewhere for answers. However, with fresh information emerging, McCoy's involvement in the case is once again being investigated by those attempting to unravel the mystery of D.B. Cooper. As the old saying goes, the truth will out. It appears that the case's long-hidden secrets are finally coming to light. McCoy undoubtedly possessed the expertise and courage required to carry off the historic skyjacking that created D.B.'s reputation. Cooper. In April 1972, just months after Cooper's heist, McCoy committed a nearly identical crime, demonstrating that he has the courage and knowledge to carry out such a plan. McCoy hijacked a United Airlines aeroplane and demanded a $500,000 ransom. Like Cooper, he boarded the plane in Denver. He seized control of the situation, diverting the aeroplane to San Francisco, where his requests were met. He then instructed the jet to take off again, plotting his escape in the same way Cooper had. Once in the air, McCoy jumped from the plane over Utah and parachuted into the night, just like Cooper. But this time, the escape would not be as easy. The FBI apprehended McCoy just 3 days after his daring jump. An anonymous source provided critical information that led authorities to McCoy. The tip directed the FBI to a waitress who remembered feeding him a milkshake at a roadside hamburger restaurant on the night of the skyjacking. The waitress's memories supplied an important hint, but it didn't end there. A youth also came forward, stating that McCoy gave him $5 to drive him from the stand to a nearby town. The FBI eventually gathered enough evidence to link McCoy to the crime. They discovered his fingerprints on the demand note, proving that he was really the hijacker. Despite fleeing the plane, McCoy was apprehended thanks to the combined efforts of witnesses and the FBI, demonstrating that even the most audacious criminals may finally be brought to justice. The similarities in McCoy's crime and D.B. Cooper's heist was impressive, but McCoy's capture reminded us that certain mysteries, unlike Cooper's, do not remain unsolved indefinitely. Cooper was supposed to be in his mid-40s, but McCoy was only 27 when he skyjacked himself. Because of the age difference, many FBI agents dismissed McCoy as the genuine Cooper, despite the fact that his crimes followed nearly identical patterns. Richard McCoy's case, while eventually solved, contributed to the ongoing mystery surrounding D.B. Cooper is alive. The similarities between McCoy's skyjacking and Cooper's daring escape sparked suspicions that have yet to be completely eliminated. While McCoy was apprehended and his fingerprints provided the evidence needed for his conviction, D.B. Cooper's identity remains unknown to both detectives and the general public, making the case one of the longest-running unsolved mysteries in American history. Richard McCoy was convicted of a skyjacking identical to D.B. Cooper, was sentenced to 45 years in jail, but escaped from a maximum security facility. After 3 months on the run, he was shot by police in 1974. Despite McCoy's capture, concerns regarding his link to Cooper persisted, owing mostly to age differences. However, a parachute tied to McCoy could provide critical proof. Skydiving specialist Dan Grider thinks it might clearly show McCoy's involvement. The finding of this parachute could finally connect McCoy and Cooper, potentially solving the decades-long mystery surrounding the iconic hijacker. So this was the hidden mystery of D.B. Cooper. If you found this video useful and liked delving into this intriguing enigma, please give it a thumbs up. Do you believe Richard McCoy may be D.B. Cooper, or is this simply a coincidence? Please share your ideas in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more informative stuff like this.